So in this video I'm going to talk about the new album by Between the Buried and Me. The album is called Colors 2 and it's a sequel to the album Colors from 2007. This is progressive metal, but it is just a very big mixing pot of many different genres, and I'm not going to waste any time talking about the band. I will leave a brief description of the band in the video description if you want to look at that real quick. But I just want to jump into it because this is a band I started to listen to a couple of years ago, and this was before I had my YouTube channel, and the band at first didn't resonate with me. It's just very complex, it was very heavy, and I just didn't get it at first. But this was also before a time, before I had my YouTube channel, and I wasn't really used to listening to albums and paying attention to all the details. So I tried listening to a few of their earlier albums, and I used to listen to on my commute to work. This was before the pandemic, and the band didn't really click with me. But now that I have been reviewing music, I do know how to sit down and put on the headphones and just do a deep listen of an album. And I will tell you up front, I really like this. It's very complex. It's just like this big pot of soup with all these different seasonings. But the base of the soup is progressive metal and death metal. And it's just an album that's just perfectly seasoned with all these different subgenres. And they have everything mixed in. And I will be talking about that as I go through. I'm going to go through song by song. And there's a lot going on here. So that's why I want to jump right into it. The album starts off with Monochrome. It's the first song with a soft piano ballad, has some clean singing, very reminiscent of modern pop music. It's almost like you don't know what you're getting into when you first start to listen to the album, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more coming here. The heavy parts eventually do kick in, and at this point it does kind of remind me of industrial music, maybe Nine Inch Nails at first. Has these heavy guitars and they're strumming the chords. But there are lots of layers to this music, and we're only about 2 minutes into the album at this point. But by the end of the song, you do hear the death metal vocals, you hear the progressive metal riffs, and keep in mind this is a 3-minute song just to start out. The next song is called Double Helix of Extinction, and this is extreme metal. The riffs are very heavy, the guitars are down-tuned, there's some thick, crunchy riffs. There are parts that move very fast. There are parts that remind me of early Gojira. There's clean singing, and there are lots of time signatures and very complex riffs. About halfway through the song, there's this jazzy space rock interlude, and we will be getting a lot of those different surprises all throughout this album. The song ends with some quiet atmospheric guitars and some piano. The next song is called Revolution in Limbo. This starts out with a whirlwind of riffs. I think this is where they show off their Dream Theater meets extreme death metal style. Within this whirlwind of heavy riffs, there are softer parts, there's clean singing. I like how they do give the listener short breaks from the heaviness at times. This is somewhat of a roller coaster of a song. It gets fast and slow. It goes up and down. There's heavy and extreme parts and there's soft parts. There's a pretty cool soft interlude with some jazzy Latin inspired solo. And a section where it sounds like he's singing in a Latin jazz style. Dare I say it, it reminded me even a little bit of the early 2000s Ricky Martin. Next is Fix the Error. And this one brings in some classic rock elements. I like that. It has an organ sound. There's a bass riff that reminded me of that early Black Sabbath. But the song in general, it's fast and furious, almost like punk rock at times. They do add some jazzy organs and some cool drum solos. It's just a 5-minute song, and I haven't even scratched the surface on what's going on here. Next is the longest song at 11 minutes and 42 seconds, called Never Seen / Future Shock. Song starts out with some heavy death metal style vocals, some progressive metal riffs. It does go into some folk metal territory about 2 minutes in, but quickly goes back to that melodic riffs and clean vocals. Song starts to implement some of the more craziness. Towards the middle, there's to have some carnival sounds and space rock mixed into the heavy death metal. There's also an interlude with acoustic guitars, and it kind of sounds like violins, and even goes into some space rock territory towards the end, and I thought it was pretty cool. Stare Into the Abyss starts out with a slow atmospheric piano intro, followed by some heavy guitars, some clean singing. The listener definitely gets a break from all the madness in this song, and the extreme metal elements are not brought in until the end of the almost 4 minute of this song. Prehistory brings in some progressive jazz fusion into the mix. This is where they kind of sound a little more like Dream Theater meeting Deep Purple in this one. They bring in some like old like cartoon sound effects and some carnival sounds and another like jazzy Black Sabbath bass solo. It's a 3-minute song, but there is a lot going on here. Next is Bad Habits, and this one is pretty cool. Does remind me of like 70s prog rock, something from like the band Yes, or maybe even like the band Boston. Mixed with some like heavy complex riffs. It's just heavy death metal riffs and some harsh vocals, but they do mix in lots of elements of like classic rock and clean singing. The Future Behind Us starts out like a typical progressive rock song with some funk elements. Still has their signature heavy riffs and death growls. This is probably the strangest song as it introduced some elements of like 80s pop. And it has a sample from the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off soundtrack. I believe it's called Oh Yeah from the band Yellow. So if you're like 80s movies, you might remember that. But there are some like thick like thrash metal riffs mixed in here as well. Turbulence continues with the 80s theme, but this time sounded more like an intro to like an 80s horror movie. It has that classic synth sound. There's some heavy guitars mixed in here. It's kind of strange. The vocals sound like 80s new wave mixed with death metal growls, but the song does have lots of heavy riffs as well. The shortest song on the album is called Spermato. It's only 1 minute, 10 seconds, and another song gives the listener a break from that like heaviness. Has some atmospheric keyboards and a Pink Floyd style guitar solo. That song serves as an intro to the final song called Human is Hell, another one with love. This is the longest song at 15 minutes and 8 seconds. Starts out pretty laid back with some melodic riffs, but the death metal and progressive metal riffs do appear before you know it. And this is an extreme metal song. I really like the machine gun riffing on this one. Like the other songs in the album, it is a mixture of heavy riffs, death growls, and clean singing. This is the last song on the album, but it's also like the most complex song. Lots of progressive riffs and heavy and light parts. So in conclusion, I'm just going to say right off the bat, it's a 9 out of 10 album. Possibly the best progressive metal album of 2021. Would be interesting to see how it stands up against a new Dream Theater album that does come out in a couple of months. But this is the type of album you need to just like sit by yourself, put on some headphones, don't have any distractions, just take it all in and listen to it a few times. That's probably why I didn't review it yesterday. I just needed to give it some more time, let it gel with me in order to, so I can give it a proper review. And this is probably even still early. I probably should have given it a few days, but you know how YouTube is. But anyway, let me know what your thoughts on Colors 2, and let me know in the comments section what you thought. That's it. This is the only new release I will be doing this week, so I will be back tomorrow with some more Iron Maiden. So like, comment, subscribe. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John, and I will see you in the next one.